Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
I'd like to present Julie Anderson. Julie is a co-owner of the Certified Marijuana Doctors, and I'm welcoming you to the show.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. You know, it's on everybody's tongue, mouth, brain, anything to do with marijuana now.
It certainly is.
And so you and your husband have really jumped into this, and I'm glad to know that because it is actually, let's say it's not really new. What they're doing now is new, but it's been going on for centuries, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've definitely evolved with the marijuana plant. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that all of us, in fact, all mammals, have an endocannabinoid system in their bodies. We actually produce cannabinoids that the marijuana plant mimics. So have you ever heard of a runner's high? When a jogger gets a runner's high, that's anandamide being released in the brain, which is similar to THC. And one of the researchers, the lead researchers in Israel, actually discovered anandamide in the body and didn't know what it was for. So they discovered this compound before they actually discovered the endocannabinoid system. And now what they've learned is the endocannabinoid system basically is a series of receptors throughout our bodies that respond to the marijuana plant. And what do those receptors do? They basically are modulators for the other systems in our body. So we've all heard of the circulatory system, the digestive system, the respiratory system, but nobody's ever heard of the endocannabinoid system, and it's nothing new. It was discovered in the 1990s. And believe it or not, to this day, it's still not taught in most medical schools.
But I think that's changing now, Julie, because I've been talking to doctors and they want to learn. And it sounds like your company is so busy because people are trying to buy everything they can. If they have all sorts of pain, if they have symptoms that the medical doctors can't correct.
Right. So one of the problems, obviously, we have a crisis in the United States right now with the opiate epidemic. And we do have a lot of patients coming in that are on pain pills that are weaning themselves off. So basically, it's effective with chronic pain. There's actually 140 compounds in marijuana that have been discovered that are actually called cannabinoids. The two that are most studied are THC, which you're familiar with. That's the one that gets you high. And CBD, and that's the one that you've heard of that helps the children with Dravet syndrome and the severe seizure disorders. So Cbd counteracts THC. So if you ever feel like you're a little bit too high or paranoid from using marijuana, you take a little CBD and it'll counteract it. But it's not to say that THC is only about getting high. It actually has many medical benefits. So that's the great thing about buying marijuana from a licensed source is, number one, it's labeled. So if you're concerned, some of our older patients are concerned about getting too high. So when they're buying from a licensed source, they know the level of THC and the level of CBD, so they know they can find what works for them, so they're not experiencing too much of a high. CBD is very effective at treating, actually, we have quite a few patients that surprisingly came in for a different condition, and they're finding that the CBD is helping them lower their blood sugar. Very effective for patients that are diabetic. So it's amazing how the wide range of, symptoms or conditions that marijuana treats. In Florida, there's, for instance, they have PTSD, which is a anxiety disorder connected to a traumatic event, Crohn's disease, epilepsy or seizures, cancer. And as a matter of fact, in some states in the United States, there's patients that are not only treating the symptoms of cancer therapy, but they're actually treating their cancer with very strong cannabis extracts to kill cancer cells, which has been proven in a lab as well. So, it goes on and on and on, the benefits. Now, what is marijuana? It's a non-toxic flowering herb. So a lot of people, it's been given a bad reputation over the years, But really, the bad reputation doesn't come from the plant itself or anyone familiar with the plant or the researchers. It comes from people that have moneyed interest in competing industries. So when you have a patient that's on 20 or 30 prescription drugs a day, and they can reduce that to 2 or 3 or none, that's a lot of money that affects the pharmaceutical industry.
Well, I have someone's on my Facebook right now. Her name's Judy Blake Walters, and she actually is with the Faith Farm Ministries. She's a wonderful woman, and so I'm glad that she's listening to this also. But I want to just ask you, I want people to know that you don't have to smoke this, because the CBD you can put under your tongue. Someone gave me some taffy. Someone gave me some gummies. There's lots of ways to take this, isn't there?
Yeah, well, it's not just CBD, but medical marijuana. So basically in Florida, the medical marijuana has been approved for edibles. So eventually they'll be coming out with the candies and that sort of thing as far as edibles. They have both, when you say CBD, in Florida they call it low THC, which means it's got primarily CBD with maybe 1% THC present. And then they have high THC, which has different combinations of both CBD and THC. So in Florida, they label it as low THC and high THC in the Department of Health registry. But, it's available in vape, which means a low temperature heat that you inhale. The great thing, a lot of people think, I don't want to inhale it. I don't want to smoke it. I've never smoked in my life. I don't want to smoke. But vaping is not like smoking. Smoking is you're combusting the plant material and you're inhaling smoke. Vaping is think of it as more of a mist. So it's very low temperature heat, just enough so it doesn't destroy any of the cannabinoids, and it releases the vapor. And it's great for patients because it acts very quickly. Within a couple of minutes, if you have enough, and your pain is going away, diminishing within literally a couple of minutes. And whereas the edibles, so you're to take a piece of candy, you don't know for an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, and then you're kind of, it's either working or it's not, and, it takes a little bit longer to figure out dosing.
We have another person watching, Seth Levy. You're on Facebook Live. You ever been on this?
No.
Oh, it's good. Okay. But you're amazing. When I spoke with your husband, and he was here the last time, he was very good, but when he said he couldn't come, and he said, please get my wife on. She knows a lot more than I do, and apparently you've done a lot of research. I'm very impressed with this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And I just want everyone to know what the company's name is and how they can get in touch with you. And it's Certified Marijuana Doctors. And the number to call if you want information is 844-420-7277. That's 844-420-7277. And what will happen when they call that number?
Well, basically, they'll be asked a series of questions and, to see if they qualify. First of all, you do have to be a Florida resident, and you do have to have a qualifying medical condition in the state of Florida. So basically, our doctors, and we have several doctors that work with us, they went to additional training to be certified in marijuana. And they come from a wide perspective of industries. One of our physicians has 30 years as a anesthesiologist. And,
he probably was a pain doctor, and that's where he moved into. A lot of pain doctors are anesthesiologists, and now they're moving into marijuana.
Yeah, no, she was actually an anesthesiologist, for surgery, and she's basically, completely convinced when she saw patients coming in for recertification and hearing the benefits that they've had and experienced. Because we've been in business a year now. We opened actually right before the law went into effect, January 3rd of last year. So a lot of patients don't realize, we still have patients coming in that don't even realize it was already legalized. They think it's still in the process.
And are you finding it difficult to find pain doctors? People who
doctors, no.
This?
We have a lot of doctors that are calling us that want to work for us. Quite a few doctors. In fact, we have more doctors than we can use. So no problem with the doctors, but, they are signing off on a Schedule I drug. So that means that the federal government still has it listed on the same level as heroin, which is unbelievable.
Right, because there's no comparison in what heroin does and what this does.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how did you get interested in this?
Well, I did a lot of research and the more that I dug, the more that I found out I was really surprised that it was a Schedule I drug, as a matter of fact. And, my husband and I actually opened a dispensary in Denver, which we sold out about 7 years ago. And we were actually in Florida. The laws changed. You had to be a resident of Colorado. We're not residents. We were residents of Florida. So we sold. And, we're real happy to see that it finally became legal in Florida. I actually used to do a radio show.
I can tell that. You're very good at this.
In California for marijuana.
Is that right?
That's
for
right.
Marijuana?
Yeah. So basically, I've done a lot of research for that as well. And, as far as Florida's doing it, it's back to what you were saying as far as intake methods. It's also capsules. So we have patients that would prefer to take a capsule, tinctures that you can take under your tongue, the edibles. And there's some lawsuits going on because what's available in Florida is all oils right now. And the John Morgan.
As compared to what?
As compared to the fresh plant, the bud. Oh. So there's a lot of patients. There's a big, huge demand for people that want the actual plant. And the reason is that you may think, well, vaping is good. And the governor, he made a statement that it's healthier. And that's actually not true. They did a study at UCLA. Dr. Donald Tashkin did a study of chronic, heavy marijuana smokers compared to non-smokers and cigarette smokers, and then also smokers who smoked both cigarettes and marijuana. The ones that smoked both had a lower incidence of lung cancer, and the conclusion was that it appeared to provide a protective effect against lung cancer. The ones that only were heavy marijuana smokers compared to non-smokers had the same level of rates of cancer, because there are people that get lung cancer, and we have some of them as patients that have never smoked in their life. So that goes to show that there is a protective effect. So people should not be thinking that, you only have to vape it to avoid that. But then again, there's people that don't like inhaling something. So they do have the option of sublingual drops, capsules, and another option is pain cream, which is external topical use. And it's very effective, which is kind of actually one that surprised me at the effectiveness. One of the problems in Florida is they've limited the number of growers. To be able to get into the industry as a grower, you had to have been in business for 30 years as a nurseryman and have 400,000 plants in your nursery. So you have to ask yourself, why would they do that? So they limit it to just a few people so they could come in with millions of dollars and say, hey, here's $10, $15 million. We're going to get you in the marijuana industry. So what's happened is there's a handful of growers, and they're already running out of product. So there's patients who can't get pain cream. They can't get capsules. We had a patient before I left the office today that said that they can't get their phone calls answered. Nobody's returning their calls. They are overwhelmed. So basically, they drove it immediately to big business. I was in Colorado. I saw how they did it. They brought in so many small business owners. I talked that, is all basically a lot of mom and pops. And, I talked to a guy that owned a safe company there. He said, I haven't been this busy in my entire life. Window painters, warehouse, real estate agents. I mean, it was unbelievable. But here, you still have patients saying, where are the dispensaries? You mean there's dispensaries here? I didn't even know. Broward County has no dispensaries.
Why is that?
Because the city councils are blocking them. They're blocking advertising for us on bus benches. I mean, it's really insane. There's a Walgreens on every other corner. They're complaining about the opiate crisis. There's, a drugstore, a bar on every other corner, but yet they are blocking medical marijuana. Yet you could probably go to your local high school and grab some marijuana. So, and that's another point that I want to make today. What is the benefit of getting licensed marijuana versus on the street? The main benefits are, number one, it's labeled, so like we talked about earlier, if you don't like marijuana that is too high in THC, there's options where it's lower, and you're not going to get the effect of the euphoria, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just some people don't want that. Okay, so it's labeled for consistency. And number 2, it's tested for contaminants. Steep Hill Lab tested marijuana from the street in California and found that 95% was contaminated with either mold, mildew, or pesticides. So that's a big deal. And that's the benefit of buying it from a licensed source. But it's too bad that it isn't available more widely, in that more smaller businesses weren't allowed into the industry in Florida.
So when I see that you have, your certified marijuana doctors, you have really passed that you know now where to get it.
Yes.
That's why you can get it, and that's why your husband's very funny. His phone number is Bob is busy, because he really is. We can't get a hold of him. I think it's hysterical. But you have the medical doctors, so you're doing the right things. And then you have so basically the patients come in and get certified. But then once they're certified, they order their card from the Department of Health. Certification means that the doctor is basically verifying their medical records, that they have a qualifying condition. They do a quick exam. And are they there in your office doing it? They have to go to their office.
No, they have to come to one of our offices. We're located throughout Florida. They can go to our website. A quick way to get to our website actually is rxpo.com. RX like prescription and PO like pure organic.com.
I have that, rxpo.com. That's what we've been putting in there.
Yeah, so basically if they go to our website, all of our locations are listed, and they come in and they see the doctor. And, we also have patients that have been using marijuana for, decades that are coming in and they want to get legal. And they say, listen, I want to do this the right way. And I've been self-medicating for years. And, a lot of them are PTSD. They were sexually assaulted as children, or we have a lot of military vets. We have patients from 9/11. We have some folks that have been affected by the Parkland shooting. So we have a wide range. We have a lot of cancer patients with multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's. It's really, and our oldest patient is 100 years old.
That's fantastic. So I heard you say something, though. It's pretty quick to respond. That when you take this, you're saying that
if you do inhalation, so there's different intake methods. Inhalation takes about 1 to 2 minutes to feel the effect. It lasts about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Sublingually, you'll feel the effect. That means drops under the tongue. You'll feel the effect in about 15 minutes, and it will last slightly longer than the inhalation. And then if you take a capsule orally and swallow it, it's going to have to obviously go through your digestive tract, and that's going to take up to 1.5 to 2 hours, but it also lasts the longest. So the quicker it affects you, it also lasts the least amount of time, but it's very effective for titrating or determining dosage. So, for instance, if you eat an edible, a chocolate that's been infused with cannabis oil, you're not really sure, what the effect is going to be for an hour and a half or so. That's why you hear some people that go to Colorado and they get a good chocolate and they think, I don't think that really worked. And it's so good they eat a couple and then they get a little bit stronger than they anticipated. So actually starting out, inhalation is a very good option.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, I have been talking with marijuana people. I just had a Cure Symposium. I had something else. You're one of the most articulate, easy to understand marijuana spokespeople I have ever heard.
Yay!
No, it's really true.
I appreciate that.
I'm so happy to meet you, Julie.
Well, thank you so much.
You're great. We'll have to have you back every month on this show. You are really fabulous. So, but somebody doesn't just go to their medical doctor and say, will you prescribe it? Because if they haven't had the training, they're not listed, right?
Right. You have to go to a certified marijuana doctor. And the thing is, actually, even in this day and age, there's still doctors that don't want their patients taking it. So, we have some patients that are, for instance, we had a Parkinson's patient a couple of weeks ago, and she said that her doctor was not on board with this, but she wanted to try it anyway. So
that is sad, isn't it?
It is.
Because you were saying that sure, just pop the pills and do something like this, because you know what? It all came back from the marijuana being illegal.
Yeah.
And heroin, everything you've been saying. So they're still afraid. They don't want, because, Florida, even though they're doing it, it takes a long time to get your card. That's what I've been told.
Actually, they just improved. So it used to be you had to wait 3 months. And then after, you had to have a 3-month relationship with your marijuana doctor, and then you could send in for the card. Now that went away. And not only did that go away, but the Department of Health just recently, 3 weeks ago, started accepting payment online. So you can actually have your approval, not your card in your hand, but the approval. They'll send you an email approval first, and that they processed your payment at the state, and then you can start buying. So within 2 weeks, we now have patients that are buying after being certified 2 weeks later.
I heard that the card was taking a while also.
The cards are really backed up, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect your ability to buy.
Oh, it doesn't?
No. As long as you get that email from the Department of Health saying that they processed your payment, it says right in the email, you can now use this as your, license to buy or whatever.
And will you help people if they come to see you to get to do that?
Oh, yeah, that's what we do.
That's what you do.
So the doctors certify them. Our doctors add them to the Department of Health registry. They get them a patient number, and they need that patient number before they can order the card.
Right. So should people, if they just call, then you'll tell them where they should go, what doctor, or do we give them doctors' names now or people to go to?
No, they go to any of our offices, and any of our certifying physicians will be able to sign off on them.
And where are your offices?
So we have an office in Dade County at 44 Northwest 167th Street, right off the Golden Glades interchange. It's east of 95, where the Golden Glades and the Turnpike.
Right.
We have another office at 2096 North University Drive in Sunrise, a half a block north of Sunrise Boulevard, on the east side of the street in Sun Plaza. And we have another office in Ocala, another office in Tampa, another office in Longwood, another office in Orlando. So we're kind of spread out.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
But that's great because, and so how are you getting the word out to everybody? Besides, we have a
magazine,
from
your radio show, of course.
No, I know that, but these other places where we really aren't, I guess you will be
honestly,
on YouTube.
A lot of our patients come from word of mouth. A lot.
Well, one thing is I am now, our radio show, your interview will be on YouTube in a few weeks.
Okay,
and you'll
great.
be able to put that on your website.
Great.
Because you're great. I think people need to listen to you. I think you could educate the doctors a lot. I bet you do.
Actually, I do. And I'm really, the doctors say, you know way more about this than we do.
Yes, and then most people. You have really researched this. This is a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, thank
Your
you.
husband, I don't want him on the show anymore. I want you, as he said. You know a lot more, and it's true.
Yeah.
This is just mind-boggling. But so I want to go back. You actually were living in Colorado.
Right.
And you had to be a resident there for a long time or you couldn't do anything.
Well, you had to be a resident actually to own a dispensary.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So the fabulous thing about Colorado, I think they really, really did it right because it economically helped so many people, not just big business. So, and there were so many, businesses as far as, like I say, the more smaller businesses that you have more ancillary businesses that benefit. So like I was saying, the window painters and the safe companies and this sort of thing. So we sold and we came back here and we were here the whole time. We were residents of Florida. That's why we were forced to sell actually.
So I have another question. I have a stepdaughter in Colorado and she's an acupuncture physician.
Mm-hmm.
How could she get involved in this?
Well, I'm not up to date in the laws now in Colorado because actually Colorado went recreational. So what that means is that you can buy it without a medical card. But in states that have recreational marijuana and medical marijuana, the benefit, most residents still get their medical marijuana card because they save a lot on taxes. So, for instance, in California, just went recreational, so you can just walk in off the street. You don't need a medical, you don't need to see a doctor or anything, but you can only buy 1 ounce, and the tax is as high as 40%. So it's heavily taxed. If you have your medical marijuana card, you pay a much lower rate, and you can buy more at one time. Another thing that's really important that I really want to mention is that one thing that Florida residents don't have the right to do is grow their own. And in most states out west, you have the right to grow a limited amount if you are licensed and you live in a certain, you can't be in an apartment building, obviously, and growing marijuana, but, they have certain rules and regulations, but patients have the right to grow their own. And the reason that's so important is marijuana that's bought in a dried form or bought in an oil form from the dispensaries is not fresh. And so the difference is you have THCA and CBDA. Those are the acidic versions of CBD and THC. And if you juice marijuana fresh, it has an unbelievable medical benefits. And both CBDA and THCA have been found to be very effective on cancer cells. So I know of a woman in California, she's been juicing it for years. Actually, her husband is a doctor. And CBDA and THCA, the acidic versions, you don't have any high. You don't get high. And she's been treating childhood onset rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. And she keeps it at bay, just juicing marijuana, fresh out of the garden.
Juicing it.
Juicing it. Yep. Breaking it off the plant, throwing it in the juicer.
So when are you going to write your book?
So you basically.
When are you going to write your book? I think you're missing something. You are so good. I think you ought to put a book together quickly, really. I can't tell you that. Julie Anderson, who is really one of the co-owner of Certified Marijuana Doctors, she's my guest, and I'm just drooling with all the information that you know.
But I wanted to mention that because in Florida, there's actually a lawsuit going on in reference to the ability of patients to grow their own, because there's a cancer patient and he wants the right to grow his own so he has access to CBDA and THCA. So, and that's primarily the basis of his lawsuit, and his lawsuit is moving forward.
Well, you've been so terrific. I'll just give your phone number one more time. We will have you back quickly. The phone number for people is 844-420-7277. 844-420-7277. I am so excited that you were here, Julie.
Well, thank you.